Thank you everyone for tuning into the third episode of Let's Get Talking. Here I have someone very special with me. He's got an amazing academic journey. His whole career revolves around his passion and love for math. He graduated from IIT Madras in 2011. He was a President Gold medalist back then. And he did his PhD from Cambridge in 2015. So here I have Bhargav Narayan with me. Thank you so much, Bhargav, for being there.
Thanks for having me, Sri Lakshmi. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. So let's today you are doing a lot of research in the field of math and combinatorics and all that. But
hmm
early on, when did you realize this is what you wanted to do? Probably during your school days or something like that.
Actually, owe a lot to my friend Sharon and to his mom in particular because through school I was, good at maths, but a lot of kids were good at maths. But I remember maybe, I think this was the last year of school, she encouraged me to try out for the Olympiads, which these were not things that I was even aware of back in my day. But I did, and I really enjoyed the process of, working on these Olympiad style problems. They're basically puzzles, so, sometimes hard puzzles, but puzzles. And but they're really enjoyable and that year of working towards going to the Olympiads is what made me think actually maybe I want to actually do this for my career.
You
Yeah,
represented India, right? You went to Vietnam representing India. You were in the national team. So yeah,
that's
can
right.
you walk us through the process? How did you get there?
uh, I guess the process in some sense is standard in that you take the regional test, you qualify for the national the test, and then once you do well on that, you get invited to some sort of camp. Sorry, I'm saying this was the process when I was doing it in 2007. I don't know if it's still the process, but you go there, and then there's 30 days of lectures and a bunch of tests, and they pick the six people with the best test scores to go represent the country. It was very exciting, very fun. A lot of kids
Yeah.
who are similarly interested in the same sort of subjects as you. You're all in the same place and you're staying together. It was very enjoyable.
Mhm. But then I heard the story from TRS sir's class that you in your first test or something there you got like a very low score and that motivated you to do really well and that
Uh,
pushed you to be who you are today.
it certainly pushed me, but and I also remember not doing well on that on maybe the very first test he gave me. Uh, I think uh, that certainly played a part, but at least the way I remember it, it was the introduction to the Olympiad stuff that made me think maths is what I want to do. Uh, when I started, for example, going through to TRS for maths classes, even a year earlier in 11th standard, I already enjoyed maths a lot, but it wasn't the thing I enjoyed the most up until I started doing some of these puzzles.
That's really nice. And then you were inclined to physics as well, right? That's something I heard from
That's
your
right.
mom.
Yeah, no, I also liked physics. Physics and maths were, I guess, the two things I seem to enjoy the most. Actually, computer science as well, because I also got interested in these programming contest type puzzles, which are, again, I guess, similar to the Olympics. To put it in a much more basic sort of way, I enjoy solving puzzles, and whatever subject sort of gave me interesting puzzles, I think I enjoyed. So
So
physics and computer science were also things I enjoyed back in school, I remember.
So yeah, and you had a difficult career choice to pursue, like whether you wanted to do BTech from IIT Madras or do something else from IISc. That
That's
was a
right.
thing, yeah, you went through. So just tell me, why did you choose to do computer science?
So the I guess there's a reasoned answer, and but I can also put it a slightly different way. Uh, I was thinking about studying, following a degree in pure maths at either CMI or ISC or something like this. And the alternative was to go study actually not computer science at the time, something like electrical engineering at IIT Madras. Uh, and at the time, to be honest, electrical engineering did not sound all that interesting to me. Still doesn't, to be completely honest. But my parents said, look, if you study maths, it's not clear you'll find, a job afterwards. Why don't you go get an engineering degree, and that way, if nothing else works out, you'll at least know that you'll be able to get a job. So it's pretty sort of routine considerations that led to this choice. I sort of told them, I'll go, but if I can't switch to a subject that I find a little more interesting, specifically computer science, I'll probably leave after 1 year and go study maths. But I got lucky and I was in fact able to switch over to computer science. And it turns out, at least on the theoretical side, computer science is pretty close to maths, and I quite enjoyed it.
And then you quite aced the whole show there at IIT Madras. You graduated with the president gold medalist that year. So yeah, so
Uh,
probably yeah. So that's
no, no,
something
sorry, go
which
ahead.
is quite incredible. Like not something that not everybody can achieve. So what is your take on that? Like how did you
Uh,
get there? I mean,
I
IIT is a place where you meet a lot of smart people. Like everyone
Sure.
is.
Yeah. So let me put it this way: someone's got to finish first. It's not like I did something exceptionally sort of that made me stand apart. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are very close with regards to whatever scoring system they use, the CGPAs or whatever. Uh, I think one advantage I had was that I enjoyed most of the courses I was doing, so it never felt like having to work really, really hard. And this is something I've tried to sort of follow my whole life, and that if you enjoy what you're doing, you don't really have to work per se, and that sort of is much more sustainable than saying, okay, I'm going to study really hard to get a good exam result, which will work for 1 or 2 exams, but when you have to do it on a prolonged basis, you're going to burn out.
Hmm. So after that, you decided to like go for masters.
Hmm.
Why specifically Cambridge over other colleges? There is like
Right,
you had amazing credentials, and it could
right,
help you land at MIT or somewhere like Stanford or something. Why did
sure.
you choose this?
Uh, So, uh, as with a lot of these things, I guess it comes down to the people that you meet who are in your life, right? So, what happened exactly was I met someone by the name of Wenky. He's a researcher at Microsoft, still there to this day, and he took an interest in me. We started working together on some undergraduate research type problems, and he happened to know someone I looked up to, uh, Bela Bolobash. He's a mathematician at Cambridge, and he introduced me to Bela, and the two of them suggested that even before I go to the US for a PhD, I go spend a year at Cambridge to do what's called Part 3, which is a year long master's program. And if anyone's listening, I recommend it very strongly to anyone who's considering it. It's a great year. There are about 200 odd courses that you can pick, 4 or 5 of your liking from, and just study those things. But anyway, so this was suggested to me by Wenky and Bela, and it sounded like a great idea. I think at the time I was going to go probably to Princeton. I had a few options in the US to go do a PhD, uh, but I said I'll come a year later, and they said that's okay, that's fine, and so I ended up going to Cambridge to do my master's there.
And then you decided to do your PhD there.
Yeah, once I got there and sort of saw what research in this style of this part of the world in pure maths was like, it I was very attracted to it, and I didn't want to leave and go to the US. So I ended up just staying there for my PhD with the aforementioned Bela Bolivar.
Hmm. So yeah, so you worked in the UK for a few years, right? Like after
Hmm.
your PhD.
That's right. I
Then
had a fellowship at Cambridge as well.
so why didn't you like stay back? What made you move to the
Sure.
US? Like,
So again, this is the answer is not very romantic. So I had a 4-year position at Cambridge. When that ran out, I was going to have to apply for a more permanent job somewhere, either in the UK or in the US, anyways. And what happened midway is that uh, Rutgers, which is where I currently work, had a position, and this the group there is headed by someone I really looked up to. Uh, and so I thought I'll see if maybe I can go there, and I applied, and it worked out. So needing a job and getting a nice one come open at the right time was just a meeting of the circumstances, nothing more than that.
So your research work at Rutgers revolves around combinatorics. But
Hmm.
before we dive deep into it, we'll have a rapid fire round.
Okay, let's go for it.
So yeah. So what is the strangest place you've had a math idea?
Oh, it's not so strange, but definitely while taking a bath, there's using the toilet. This has definitely happened. Airplanes are pretty common. You get a lot of quiet time to yourself uh, on a walk, but nothing nothing that immediately comes to mind that would be a particularly good story. I've thought I've had good ideas after a night out partying with friends, but those ideas typically turn out to not be correct when I check them the next morning. So yeah.
Yeah. So what is your favorite late night snack after work?
Uh, I tend not to snack late at night to the extent I can. Especially with a baby, it's very easy for me to gain more weight than I would like to. But when I was younger and fitter, I guess cashew nuts have always been a weakness of mine. I quite enjoy a nice salted roasted cashew nut.
So a book that you'd recommend which is not about math.
Sure, there are many, but if you have to, if you quickly ask me for one, maybe I would recommend A Confederacy of Dunces. It's this wonderful, funny book about life in New Orleans and a very peculiar main character.
So last show or movie that you binge watched.
Very recently, after a long time, my wife and I watched this TV show called Department Q, which was, I think, on Netflix, and it was very good, and I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, one habit that your students teach you about.
Uh, that my students tease me about. My students are maybe nicer than they ought to be. They don't seem to tease me about much, but something that I wish I did less of was showing up a few minutes late to meetings, which sadly, the older I get and the busier I get, seems to happen more often than I would like for it to. I feel guilty. So,
So yeah, one thing you miss about IIT Madras.
ooh, the just living there with friends was a special time. Uh,
So if you
so I guess
weren't
the
a
people.
if you weren't a mathematician, what would you be doing?
Uh, I would like to say I'd be doing something cool. Uh, I briefly entertained the possibility of doing stand-up comedy somewhat seriously, but it's a tough life, and I don't think I'd have the stomach to do it for a paycheck, so to speak. I don't know. Maybe uh, maybe an artist of some sort if I could, find a way to make ends meet. Something creative, I imagine.
Hmm. Okay, that was a fun, entertaining session. Thank you so much for that,
Sure.
Bhargav. So next, so let me. Can you just explain what combinatorics is to a layman, like someone who's not a
Uh,
mathematician?
sure. I will try to do my best, but it will be helpful if you play the role of the layman and ask me to expand if something's not so clear.
Yeah.
Combinatorics, for the most part, the easiest way to describe it is this type of mathematical, the branch of maths that arises, that comes from trying to count things at a very basic level. But simplistic as that sounds, it leads to very interesting sort of phenomena and very interesting questions. One type of thing that I work on, this is a subfield of combinatorics called Ramsey theory. Uh, and the famous sort of example that people give to explain this subject is the following mathematical fact. Uh, if there's a party somewhere, let's say with at least six people present, either three people attending all know each other, they're all sort of mutual friends, or there are going to be three people there that are all mutual strangers who don't know each other. Uh, this is something that you can give a proof for. Uh, Let me say it slightly differently. It's saying if you put down 6 points on a piece of paper and you join each pair of them with, let's say, a red line if those two people know each other and a blue line if they don't know each other, it's saying no matter how you color these lines, there's going to be a triangle, all three of whose lines are the same color. And starting from this, and if someone listening has never seen this, you can try to prove this, which is argue that this is always true, and it's not hard, but trying to sort of generalize this in various ways, for example, immediately leads you to very interesting and to very interesting problems that we don't understand very well to this day, and we're still sort of trying to discover more things about these sorts of phenomena.
Hmm. So your work revolves a lot. I mean, around real life application and things like that.
Uh, my research, I'll be honest, it doesn't. There are some applications typically to computer science, but the sorts of things I find interesting just for sort of out of intellectual curiosity. It's not what applications might, then show up that motivates me. Uh, some of what I've done turns out to be useful in other parts of the mathematical world. But a lot of what I've done, I've just done because I've been interested in these things.
But the thing is, today AI and all is growing rapidly and things like that.
Sure.
But your work, I mean, combinatorics in general, how is it used? How is it applied in AI and machine learning and
Uh, right.
places like that?
Combinatorics itself doesn't directly, or at least it's not the sort of subject that influences machine learning research immediately, but combinatorics is quite close to another one of my research areas, which is probability. And they sound like somewhat, different subjects, but they're fairly closely related. Uh, Probability, in some sense, is also basically counting, except now you're dividing by other things to get probabilities. Uh, and there are questions in machine learning that tools from probability might be helpful in answering. Why do neural networks exhibit the sort of behavior they do, especially when you use randomized procedures to train them? It's possible that there is a probabilistic theory that could explain these things. But I think this is all sort of areas of active research. We don't have good answers to many questions. The experimental science definitely has got far ahead of what the theory can currently explain. Which is, and I should clarify, I'm not a machine learning expert. This is just my sort of second-hand understanding of the field.
But any other real world application of combinatorics and probability that you work like?
Uh, the, of my work directly, uh, sort of, it's been used in some computer science problems. So algorithm design is something that my work touches upon, and I there was a paper that I wrote with some of my collaborators, one of whom was Venki. I mentioned him earlier, who works at Microsoft, and we were working on some uh, mathematical questions that come from a fairly actually not that come entirely motivated by a real world question of what computer scientists call load balancing. You have a bunch of jobs, let's say, that arrive a computer, and the question is, or at a bunch of at a server, let's say, that allocates them to different machines to sort of handle. And the question is, how do you do this well? One job might need a lot of CPU, not much memory. A different job might need a lot of memory, not much CPU. Uh, and you have different parameters that different, each of these jobs might care about. And the mathematical abstraction for this is you just think of a job as a vector in some high dimensional space, and you're thinking about putting these vectors into different bins so that all the bins look roughly the same. You want to utilize your resources sort of as equally as possible. Uh, and we proved interesting things about this and came up with some algorithms for how to do this. And it turns out these are useful algorithms. They ended up using some of these things in building some of their cloud infrastructure at Microsoft. So that's, I guess, yeah, the one example that immediately comes to mind.
Yeah. You mentioned about your friend from Microsoft. So even you have your research stint at Microsoft and jump trading, right? Like apart
That's right.
from
I've consulted at both places at various points in the past. That's right. Uh, it's usually so these are two sort of firms where I happen to know people, and so we've had a relationship where when one of these firms has a problem that one they would like some help with, and two, uh, I'd be a good fit for the type of problem. Then we sort of work together to work on some of these things. So
Mhm.
the problem I just mentioned was one of these things that came up at Microsoft.
Yeah. So you were telling me about this. So why didn't you like take up a full-time job like at Microsoft or after graduating or a jump
Hmm.
trading probably as a quant? Because even your interest aligns there as well.
Sure. I like this is going to sound yeah. The sort of honest answer is that I enjoy not having a boss and being able to do whatever I want to do. And much as the money, to be sort of blunt about it, is better at places like Microsoft or some. At the end of the day, your what you do is in subject is is driven by whatever you need to do to make the business successful. Whereas the sort of thing I enjoy doing is, for the most part, following my intellectual curiosity, and oftentimes it leads me to interesting problems. But I don't think I'd be able to get away with my way of working at a firm like at either of those firms.
Mhm. But how is your like day at Rutgers? So it's like you told me you don't have a boss and all that, but how is your
Hmm.
work day like?
Sure. So when I say I don't have a boss, it only means that I have control over what I get to and when I get to do it. Doesn't mean that I can just sit around and do nothing, which might
Yeah.
be the impression that some people get when they hear that statement. Uh, so a typical day, typically, though it's been a while since I've had a typical day. The last year or so, with we had a baby about a year back, so the last year or so has been very non-standard. Tree baby, I'd say I go in to work uh, around 9 a.m. But going into work on some days means I just go to a coffee shop and I sit down to think. On other days, I go to the department, I meet students, I have lectures. Either I'm teaching something or we have a seminar where someone is visiting and talking about their own work. Uh, I then tend to have research meetings of various sorts, maybe with PhD students or with collaborators if they're visiting, or Zoom meetings. This tends to go on till about 4 p.m., give or take, and then I get home. Uh, and yeah, this tends to be what the sort of typical sort of workday looks like.
Yeah, so like post baby, I mean, right now you're working on research paper and stuff like that, right? Even though it's not
Sure,
as hectic
sure,
like before, but yeah, you work on. What is your current research on? What are you
uh,
working on currently?
sure. So currently, I'm investigating something called the matrix permanent. So people listening to this might have come across the determinant of a matrix. Uh,
Yes, yes.
this is a once you start to study linear algebra, this is a quantity. This is a thing that you encounter fairly early on. There's a slightly different object called the permanent, which is very similar to the determinant, but very different in other ways. Uh, and the short uh, the one line sort of summary of the permanent is that we don't understand it for the most part. I mean, by that I mean we can define it. It's not that we don't know how to define it, but trying to understand its properties for large matrices is something that we currently just don't know how to do. And I maybe 3 or 4 years back I discovered a potentially new thing about these things. And recently I got re-energized to work on this. Something I tried to prove for a long time but didn't really make much progress on. But I started working with a couple of postdocs who are actually geometers, and their perspective has been very complementary to my own, and we've been making steady progress on trying to understand this.
So, do you teach these days? You take lectures and
I do. So I wasn't teaching the last year because I was on
yeah.
leave and on sabbatical and so on. But this coming semester, come September, I'll be teaching. I will be teaching a graduate graph theory course. Come September.
Hmm. What are the challenges you find in teaching abstract math to undergrads? You teach for undergrads?
I do teach undergraduates, though less often than I teach graduate students.
Okay.
Uh, Graduate teaching is a lot easier in some sense, in that you're talking to people who already uh, have some level of interest in what you're talking about. So there's less work that goes into saying why something is interesting or why someone should care about something. When you're teaching undergraduates, it's you have to be sort of conscious about not just telling them what's true, but telling them why they should care about it, why it might prove useful to them, because oftentimes you're not teaching people who want to be mathematicians. You're teaching someone, let's say, studying computer science, who needs to learn similar to graph theory because that's basic to other things that they will study as they sort of go along. Or you might be teaching linear algebra or vector calculus to a physicist who will need it later on. So in those cases, all you can do is sort of try to give examples that hint at why the stuff is useful and has applications, and hopefully that serves the purpose of getting them motivated to follow along.
Yeah, while you mentioned graph theory, I have a friend of mine who goes to the same college where your wife went. So yeah, she
Ah,
went to SSN. So I mean,
yeah.
she's going to SSN right now, and she's
Okay.
having her discrete math exam, and she's learning. She was telling me about graph theory and how hard it is and things like that. She's
Hmm.
having her exam tomorrow. So the
Okay.
thing is, how do you like motivate student? You know, who find it all intimidating and all that. How do you motivate students?
Uh, the the honest answer is that I'm not very good at this. I think it helps to not think about the pressures of having to write exams when you're first sort of, encountering this stuff. Uh, and one thing I try to tell both my undergraduate and my graduate students is that being stuck, not knowing what to do, is the default sort of mode of existence when you do mathematics. So if you look at a problem and your first instinct is, I have no idea where to start, that's not a bad thing. Uh, because when I encounter a problem with my research, that is the first step. If you already know how to do something, it's not that interesting as a problem. Okay, in school, you learn certain ways of solving problems, and then the exams have this more or less the same problems with different, numbers, and you have a recipe ready to go. But when you're solving real life maths problems, you have to be creative. So maths is very much a creative exercise in the same way that writing an essay or whatever, something that people more traditionally think of as a creative pursuit. So the first thing is to just be comfortable with not having any idea where to start. And the second is to then say, okay, I have this puzzle. I have no idea. So let me like play around. Let me see what I can do. And the answer is that if you are willing to sort of invest some time into playing around with this thing that you have no idea how to sort of tackle, you'll find that one, it's rewarding, and two, you'll end up learning things as you sort of play around. But it's easy to say these things. People don't always have the luxury of having the time to play around when you have five different courses and you have to sort of solve your homework problems for all of them. But at least with maths, it's helpful to not work under pressure, to give yourself time to just sort of be stuck and just throw around things in your head, and hopefully, even if you don't solve the problem you started off trying to solve, this will, in most cases, be educational. It's my sort of, one thing that might or might not help people who might be struggling with this sort of thing.
The thing is, like a lot of these CS students, CS major students, friends I have, they all
Hmm.
complain saying math is very hard in college. It's not like what it was in school. I mean,
Hmm.
they are the kind of kids who are really good in math at school, but when they move to
Sure.
college, they find that something somewhere something is not
Hmm.
working for out for them, and
Sure.
that's the kind of problem. And what would if your students are having that kind of a problem, how would you help them cope up with the thing?
I think the first thing is that is just what I said earlier, which is that you shouldn't feel bad that it's suddenly harder.
Like
It's
if
going to
you're
be
like
hard for
barely
everyone.
passing, if you're barely
Ah,
passing and things like that, not
I
like
see.
not like a
Sure,
sudden, like there's like that
sure.
big slope.
I see. Yeah. In that case, maybe give it more, like devote more time to it. It's tough for me to sort of give useful advice on this front. Uh, I definitely remember going to college and more or less our very first sort of introduction to maths was real analysis, uh, which after you've done calculus at the school level is a different beast in terms of how you argue things. And actually, I do remember this being very hard for a lot of people. Um, but uh, the point is that in some sense, the way the transition is in some sense like learning a new language. Uh, you're arguing about different things in different ways. So the only thing I can say that, and I don't even think this is helpful, is that it is going to be hard, but if you're willing to put in the work and acknowledge the fact that it's hard and just spend some time with it, one, it will start to become natural the same way maths at school becomes natural. Uh, and that if you just expect that doing what you did at school will translate to doing well with the newer stuff that you're learning, then maybe you're setting yourself up for some disappointment. Uh, and the last thing, this might be controversial, not everyone needs to be good or at maths or enjoy maths. Like, of course, it's different people have different interests, and if it's not for you, it's not for you. It's okay to say at some point that I'm going to pick things that align better with where my interests are. So I don't know how helpful that was because I don't think I have a very good answer to how you deal with this transition and difficulty, but hopefully some of that's helpful.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you deal with a lot of young people, young minds, in college.
Hmm.
Like, yeah. So the thing is, what advice would you have them for someone who's finding it hard to decide between the industry and this research field?
Uh, so I think I would say go do sort of academic research only if you think there is nothing else that will make you happy. Because doing a PhD is a big commitment. It's 5 years of your life, uh, and short of wanting to be an academic, it's not like those 5 years give you something particularly valuable out in industry. Uh, but for some people, that decision becomes easy. There's very little else that they'd enjoy doing. They want to work on problems that challenge them, on not just on problems that challenge them, on problems that nobody knows how to solve. That in some sense are at the frontier of human knowledge, and are willing or at least aware of what they're giving up when choosing to do this. Because as I mentioned earlier, you certainly will end up making a lot more money, for example, if you pick the path of going to work at an industrial sort of job where your work is more applicable to society. Uh, and it's not the case that industrial jobs don't have to be boring. There are, I'm sure, lots of different things that you could consider doing. So in some ways, I'd say doing a PhD and doing academic research is something that is only really worth doing if you know or feel very strongly that nothing out in industry will bring you that satisfaction. Because doing a PhD or academic research half-heartedly will be a very painful 5 to 6 years of of your youth, and
Yeah.
I'd rather you didn't sort of waste your time going down that rabbit hole unless you wanted to.
Yeah, that was quite insightful. The thing is, before we get into the next question, we'll play a fun game again.
Okay, sure.
So this you gotta pick one, this or that,
Okay.
teaching or research,
Uh, I have to say research, though I do like teaching as well.
probability or combinatorics,
Ooh, combinatorics by a small margin, I'd say.
India, US. This is gotta be hard.
Uh, yeah, this is very tough. Uh, Currently, I have to say the US. It's where I live and where I work. Yeah, it's tough to sort of pick one unilaterally.
Early mornings or late night,
Oh, this one's easy. Early mornings for me.
online classes or in-person lectures,
In person.
city life or campus life,
Uh, I don't see why they have to be mutually exclusive, but I'm a city person.
coffee or tea,
Coffee.
books or podcasts,
Uh, it used to be books, And I want to say books, but my habits probably will reveal that I listen to more podcasts these days than read, sadly.
Yeah, that was really fun. So yeah, apart from that, apart from a mathematician, there's another
Hmm.
side of you who's a big sports fan. You
Very
keep
big
up,
sportsman.
yeah. So you keep up with all the soccer matches, like you keep up with the scores, and you're updated with everything around the world. So yeah, where did
Not
this start from?
at school, more or less. We used to play soccer every week when we had our PT classes, and uh, and ever since I've been a huge fan of soccer, or football as I would describe it. And I haven't followed the leagues every year. There've been years where I've just been too busy with other things to follow. But for the most part, if I get the time, I'll try to watch a game on the weekend if there's a good game on. I'll keep up with how the various teams that I follow are doing. Yeah, I enjoy it greatly. I think it's useful to have a hobby, and sports are probably my biggest hobby these days.
Hmm. Apart from that, you are an amazing stand-up comedian, right?
I used to be. I used to do it. I don't know if I'd say I was amazing at it. I was okay, but I've not been performing for a while now.
Would you like to perform it for our audience?
No, no. I've nothing that I remember from when I used to do comedy. Uh, uh, all I can probably do is this maybe tell you a joke or something that I've heard recently, which is not the same as doing stand up. But let, okay. Here's a really stupid joke I made up yesterday for my daughter. She's been, for context, she's been looking at books with lots of pictures of birds in them. Uh, Let me try to reconstruct it. This, this caveat in advance is going to be terrible, but if one person tries very hard to fly by flapping their wings, they fail. But did you know that two can? It was a terrible joke because there's a bird called a toucan, and I was trying to make up
Okay.
something to make my daughter laugh. I'm so sorry, I did not come prepared to share an interesting or a funny joke.
But that's okay. That's okay. But that was
The
it's
stupid
okay.
joke that I made up yesterday.
That's okay. But yeah, apart from that, like what else do you enjoy
Uh,
doing?
so more recently, I've started playing squash, which goes back into my interest in sport in general. I've probably had more knee injuries than most professional athletes. I've torn both my ACLs playing soccer, so I decided that the at least my playing days are behind me. I'm no longer uh, going to risk playing soccer. I get too involved, and I can't resist the urge to go 100%. So now I've picked up squash, and I find it to be very good. It's been it's I think sort of more general advice to anyone young enough to be listening and might benefit from this. I think it's important for everyone to have some sort of sport or physically demanding hobby in their lives. Exercise is tremendous for your both your physical but also your mental well-being, and uh, the times where I've had the most stress or the most difficulties uh, with my health in life have been have coincidentally or not coincidentally have coincided with periods of time when I've not been particularly active physically. So I think it's very important to 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 have a sport in your life, and I don't want to prescribe what that should be. Everyone's got their own interests, but but this has been a huge improvement to my life to find a new sport after soccer. I had a rough year when I tore up my knee and I couldn't play and I couldn't get any other exercise, but discovering that there are other ways. I know that badminton is very popular in
Yeah,
India these
yeah,
days.
yes, yes.
So yeah,
Pickleball is really picking up.
pickleball, sure, yeah. So yeah, it doesn't matter what, as long as you find something to play consistently. You get, it's social. You get to hang out with people you like, and it gets your heart rate up. So if nothing else, let this podcast be an advertisement for having a sport that you can play regularly.
Yeah. And apart from that, you're into painting as well.
I enjoy painting. Yeah, I used to paint with acrylics when I was younger. At some point, I started sketching on my iPad. I stopped for a long period of time, but very recently I've decided to pick up the hobby again, and I've been trying to teach myself how to paint with watercolors, uh, which it turns out, I don't know about you, but when I was in school, when you first got sent to art class or drawing class or whatever, you were
You'd be
handed a
sent
box
that.
of watercolor.
Exactly.
You were given watercolor, but it turns out you don't really appreciate how hard these things are to work with in school, because let's be honest, most of our paintings in school were terrible. But it turns out watercolors are a very versatile and interesting medium, but you have to learn them the right way. You don't just pick up the paints and you sort of put them down. Turns out how you mix them with water has a big impact on how it looks on the paper. And so I've been treating myself as a complete beginner. I've been doing nothing but painting just squares with paint, but learning some techniques along the way. It's been very very fun. That's
Yeah.
another thing that I would maybe suggest as a thing to everyone. Not painting, but just trying something new every couple of years, because it's fun to be a complete beginner and to not have the pressure of having to do well and to do something at a high level, but just to sort of mess around and learn something new.
Yeah, that was fun, Bhargav. We had a great time with you on the show, but before ending this thing, I want to ask you
Hmm.
the question of the day.
Okay, sure.
So, what's one thing that AI has made it easier or more efficient for you, and what's one thing you still prefer to do it yourself?
Okay, there are things where I find AI to be quite useful, and for the lack of a better way of describing it, AI is really useful for, let me describe it as complicated searches. So, uh, if I, for example, have some vague idea of what I'm looking for, it can be very hard to articulate this into a Google search to find what I'm looking for. This could be a work related thing, it could be a personal thing. On the work front, it could be that I'd remember that there is a theorem of some form about an object of this kind. I don't remember what it's called, I don't remember what the theorem says even, but just that it has something to do with these things. It used to be the case that finding this theorem would be hours of Googling, whereas now, if I feed enough of the context into, an LLM, it typically finds what I'm looking for almost instantly. Similarly with personal stuff as well, where let's say I'm looking for something to do on an evening in a new city. Uh, the typical Google route or the search route to this is you look up things to do, you then narrow that down based on your preferences, then do more research and so on. Whereas with an LLM, I can just say, here are the things I like, these are my constraints, what are my options, and it does a lot of that filtering and a lot of that research for you, and it can be a pretty big time saver on these fronts. In terms of what it can't do, it doesn't seem to be any good at the sort of maths that I am doing. I know that some of these models seem to have now made progress to the point of you know getting gold medal-esque scores on IMO problem sets. I don't have access to these models, but the ones that I do have access to, they're good at computations, at solving some basic problems, but for the most part, my research seems safe to this day. But I don't know a year from now. Things can change pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's there. So thank you so much for being here on the podcast. Thanks
All right.
a lot and all the best for your research work. And
Thank you. Thank
congrats
you for
on
having
being
me.
a dad. You
Of
know,
course, it's been the light of my life the last year or so.
yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.